And we are live. Welcome to what I believe is the 12th edition of the Perfect Madness Wrestling Podcast. Welcome again, me back to the podcast. I've been away for a while. I was on assignment. I was covering the in-depth look at Larry Zbyszko's life story, and that will be coming out to you at a much later date. We've got to still do a little bit more fact-checking. But for those of you who don't remember or don't know, hi. I'm Chris Daria, and Ronda Rousey once gave me a nickel. I don't know why, but I thought that was pretty cool. With me, as always, is the disembodied voice of the Black Scorpion. Remember him? He's Adam Eaton. Here you go, Adam.
Whoa. Sorry, something popped up on my computer. Okay.
Are we
I'm
good?
good now. Yeah, sorry. Some window popped up on my computer and it was replaying what you had just said. So I was hearing two of you.
Well, that's not a problem.
Was kind of cool, but kind of threw me off. So.
Yeah. Jeez. I'm sorry.
But anyways,
sometimes it's good to have two of me. Sometimes it's like when two Stings appear at Halloween Havoc, and nobody wants to see it.
Well, I'm back again, second time this week, to try and save the IWC from itself. So let's jump right in. Chris, I'll let you introduce the topic.
I will do that. And you can ready the troops to begin saving people in the IWC. But today's topic is something that Adam and I have been talking about for a long time, and that's something that is pretty new as of maybe like 2-3 months ago.
Not even a month and a half.
It's a day of the week is what we're going to be talking about, and specifically Wednesday, or as many fans of professional wrestling have decided to call it, Wrestle Wednesday. And Wrestle Wednesday is very important because there has not been a time in the history of professional wrestling where more than 4 wrestling companies have had syndicated television shows air on the exact same day, 2 of which at a time at the exact same time. I don't think that's happened. I don't think it's been more than 2 since the late 80s when you had NWA and AWA. We all know about the Monday Night Wars and the Monday Night Wars that TNA tried to create, by the way, drink. But I don't think it's been this many companies, and it is 4 separate companies. You have TNA, Ring of Honor, NXT, a part of WWE, and the newest player, Lucha Underground. So, and I've heard this said, and I would have to agree with this, and I want to pose the question to you, Adam, that because of this proliferation of wrestling product on one night, we're in a bit of a boom period. Do you think this is a boom period for wrestling? And if so, why? If not, why not?
I am hesitant to say that we're in a boom at this moment, but I think we're on the cusp of it. There's been a lot more than just these 4 wrestling promotions on one night to prove that wrestling is coming. I mean, Tommy Dreamer's House of Hardcore signed a TV deal. I don't think it's very national, but I mean, it's something. PWG, I think it's called. They signed a deal too. What else? We have Global Force on the rise, and it's a good time because it seems a lot is happening. But if you look at the number 1 player, the WWE, and you look at ratings, they're kind of down. So it's hard to call it a boom, but we're almost there.
I can understand that. There are a lot. I think this is the first time since WCW and ECW folded where this much product was available on television. I think that's the main reason why people are calling it a boom, because for a while it was WWE, and TNA was there, but they obviously were not as prevalent as in WWE, and those were really the only 2 companies that were available to all of American audiences that had cable. You had Raw on USA, SmackDown on Sci-Fi, and whatever other networks it was bounced around to, and you had TNA Impact on Spike. ROH didn't have a national cable deal at this early setup. Neither did AAA or New Japan, which I believe is an American cable deal as well, or any of these other independent companies that have been around for a while. So of that we can have this much and this much on one night. Now, I do not have cable. I have my own ways of watching television and trying to get the stuff and figure out what's going on. But I am unable to watch everything as it happens. Have you tried to do that? Have you tried to watch all of Wrestle Wednesday at once?
I also don't have cable, but I sometimes I'm able to catch NXT live,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I could do that, it just depends on where I go and what they post, what's I can find fastest. For some reason, well, it depends. Sometimes I could find a way to watch Impact live. So, and then usually Lucha is the first thing I'm able to find.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, I think it's very interesting and very cool that all four of these shows, and all four of these shows are incredibly unique and they bring different things to the table, which I think is good. I want to get this right out of the way before we get into like the pros and cons of each one. But I want to know, out of the four, which one do you look forward to the most each week?
Lucha Underground.
And why?
It's different every week. There's something exciting. There's hardly any filler because they have so much talent, and from the top to the bottom, it's always something. Each person has a character. There's not really any jobbers. And if there is someone meant to be a jobber, that crowd and that atmosphere, I've been a part of it. It's so crazy. They just cheer and boo everybody. They don't even care. And so even if someone is supposed to be a jobber, when they come out, the crowd is cheering. So you're like, oh, this guy must be something. He must mean something somewhere, which half of them do, because half of them, a lot of them are perform in Mexico. They got a big following. The crowd seems pretty smart. So you're like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. And Matt Stryker is a genius, and he just gets people over talking about their lineage in Mexico and everything. So there's any time in Lucha Underground. It's fast-paced. Their presentation is amazing with the TV show presentation. The story has started from day one, and it's just continued and continued and continued. And so you're always like, I know it's weird because it's a wrestling show, but at the same time, I'm like, wait, I want to know more what's going on with the backstage stuff. I want to know more about this story. I want to know what's going to happen next. And then the next week, they won't show you that stuff. They'll show you something else. But the wrestling is so good that you don't even care. And then when they bring it back, you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. That did happen. So now what's going to happen? So it's always keep you guessing, always got you on your toes.
Absolutely. They do a great job, and I definitely that's up there on my list. I like what Lucha Underground does because it has done the thing. I think that it has done the thing that pretty much every wrestling company has been trying to do for years and have only had a marginally successful rate with this, and that is they have successfully blended a wrestling show with a scripted television show because they understand what wrestling is and not trying to pass it off as something that it isn't. Everything is structured around a story. It's more like a television show that is wrestling themed than a wrestling in that way because of how good the stories are. And that owes a lot of credit, I think, to three people. Those three people being Robert Rodriguez, Mark Burnett, and the gentleman who plays Dario Cueto, the somewhat corrupt owner of the temple. And the fact that you've got two TV-minded people behind the show makes it wonderful, makes it great. I mean, and the crew has been talking about it nonstop. There have been people like this gentleman named Eric Van Wagenen, just on Stone Cold's podcast, talking about how the show got put together. And then you have what's his name, Krista Joseph, the former Big Dick Johnson. Remember that guy? He's a showrunner on Lucha Underground. So you got wrestling people, but then you've also got these TV-minded people that are excellent at putting together these stories, and you've got it all anchored by an actor, by someone who was trained as an actor. Classically trained, I might add. I mean, Dario Cueto knows what he's talking about. He knows how to get a story across better. And the wrestling stuff he doesn't have to do because that's not his role. But he can get more comfortable with that. I think it's easier and I might get some heat for saying this, but I think it's easier sometimes for actors to understand wrestling than it is for wrestlers to understand acting. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
I can see that to an extent. Someone like in Dario Cueto's role, because the basics of wrestling is storytelling, and that's part of the issue I have with a lot of guys today. I could explain more when we get to ROH, but a lot of things that are missing from wrestling is storytelling. So when you have an actor play that role that's non-competitive, it translates well because he's not trying to be in the ring and doing all this kind of stuff and trying to have a match and everything. So he's playing his role, he's staying to it, he's not trying to do too much, so it works really well. When you have someone else come in that tries to do too much, and like when the WWE brings in actors, sometimes they don't get it because they're just there for one shot to promote something instead of trying to be there and tell the story. I think if they came in and told a story, it usually works out well. Sometimes when the actors have a build up to WrestleMania, it works out pretty well. But when they're just there for one shot, one pop, then it doesn't work. But in Lucha's case, the thing about them is they have not sacrificed the wrestling or the in-ring product for the TV show. And I think that's where WWE goes wrong, because they're like, oh, let's worry about backstage, let's worry about promos, let's worry about this, and they forget to tell the story in the ring.
Although WWE sometimes avoids that. I'm gonna use that point to segue, and I think that definitely that NXT does what you say, because pretty much everything that they talk about, all the stories eventually end up in the ring at NXT, which I know is something that you look for. And I'll be honest, NXT to me edges out Lucha Underground just like this much as the one I look forward to. Maybe it's because it's the one I've been watching the longest out of the four of the shows that are on there. But I'm a big NXT guy. I love the way it feels when you watch it. I love the way that it feels. It doesn't feel like WWE, even though it is. They talk about stuff that happens on the main roster a little bit, but that's not the focus of the product. The focus of the product is what's happening in the NXT arena in Full Sail University. That's their little world, and they keep to that. Sometimes outside folks will come in. Sometimes outside stories will come in. For the most part, it's kept right there. The crowd is very alive, like Lucha. Also, like Lucha, pretty much everybody matters. There might be a few jobbers that don't, but even for some of the jobbers, people like Chad Gable, who has just really been given his first big story allowed to play on television, or a woman known to the independent scene as Leva Bates, but known in the arena as Blue Pants, has been given like crazy status by the fans. So they're in on it and they know what's going on. But a lot of the stories are usually very good at telling some very top-notch stories. The whole stuff with Owens basically feuding with Balor, Zayn, John Cena, and Samoa Joe at the same time has been pretty cool. And a lot of it's happened on NXT, and a lot of it's been pretty cool to watch them do that. So that's why it's my favorite. I don't know how much you watch in NXT these days, but let's go over to that one and see what you think about that one.
With NXT, I don't get excited for it as much because I feel like a lot of it is nonsense. Because it's a developmental promotion, and I get that. So a lot of things are to get certain wrestlers ready. But it started off so hot. It got such a big following, and it put all this stuff in that now with all the big names moving up, they're kind of in a transitional period almost. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you look at it, Owens is gone, um, Zayn is hurt, Tommy's hurt, and you only have Joe and Balor really. I don't know what the hell happened to Tyler Breeze. And then let's see who else. Oh, the Divas have moved up. So it's kind of weird. We're not there yet. We'll see how they do in the coming weeks. But still, a lot of times with NXT, yeah, the stories end up in the ring, but sometimes certain stories are only like so much of the show. So it's like you get a one segment with Tyler Breeze and whoever he's feuding with, and then the next week they're not on the TV, and then they'll come back the following week. So then by the time the takeover comes, I could just watch the recap on takeover, and I feel like I didn't miss anything. I didn't miss one segment. I didn't miss any build to their match or anything, because everything's been told. Because there hasn't been much to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Or to recap.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between Lucha and Takeover, or NXT, because I think you said the exact same thing about Lucha Underground, that they will focus on somebody and they won't bring them back the next week, and then the week after you'll get a good story in the next week. Is that they don't have these quarterly specials to look forward to. They really are trying to tune in week after week after week, and I think that introducing those specials have kind of done two things. On the negative side, it's given NXT kind of like that finite period where, oh, okay, I don't have to watch the whole show. I could just watch the special and see the packages and know what's going on. But at the same time, I think as a positive, it gives it these takeover specials give a sense of this is an important thing. This is something that is incredibly important to what's happening. It allows more than 1 hour of wrestling to be seen at a time, and it has been a great way to really showcase what NXT is. And I think they try to keep that momentum going throughout the in-between periods. But I do see your point on that. I want to go back. Is there anything that you feel like Lucha Underground can be doing better?
That's hard to say, because I love every minute of it.
Mm-mm.
I would say to go longer, but at the same time, that might be part of the mystique about it, is that it is only 1 hour.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if you increase to an hour and a half or 2 hours, then they may screw it up. I mean, look at Raw going 3. So
yeah.
it just, I mean, sometimes it backfires. I mean, look, we could even go look at Nitro from an hour, 2 hours to 3, back down to 2. It just, and then when they added Thunder, so I mean, if you look at the WCW, every time they added more, then there's oversaturation, and
Yeah.
so, and I feel that kind of is what happened with NXT in their specials,
Mm-hmm.
because now we're getting quarterly specials, and then like we said, they build up to something, but it's just now it's not as special as like the first couple, because we're like, oh, now they're having another one. Oh, great, they're having another one. This is cool. And now it's become a regular thing to where we're like, okay, well, they're going to have one sometime around here. So now the big thing for NXT is, where are they going to have the specials?
Yeah, I can see that. For me, with Lucha, it's very difficult to put anything negative about it, because what they do so well. And the performers they got have been able to do some incredibly death-defying things. And same thing with the storytelling. It's wonderful. They've introduced some very interesting elements. I mean, where else can you see angry ninja skeletons breaking people's arms, dudes who are probably real dragons fighting barrio people named Hernandez that don't believe in dragons? Where else can you find a dude who can literally be reborn fighting an army of dead people? So there's a lot of supernatural elements, but the thing about it is that it all makes sense. Where I think they can improve, and I've said this from day one, although he is growing on me, Vampiro does add credibility, but Vampiro as a color commentator is a little off to me. He's gotten better than what he used to be when the show first started, but I think he's found his rhythm with Matt Stryker, who's just a wealth of information about everybody, and him randomly weaving in his hatred of Conan for no particular reason. It just threw me off a little bit, and it took my focus away from what was going on, but I think he's found his groove. And I would say that I think sometimes the pacing of the matches is different, and this I will say about ROH too, is that a lot of times in these Lucha matches, the match could have ended at least 5 times before it does. Sometimes they go one finishing sequence too many, I think, but it just goes to show how well versed in the sport of wrestling these guys actually are, and how good they are at doing what they do. I don't think it's a knock. I just think it's something that they can improve on.
I did think of something, and then I'll go back to your point about the in-ring style.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I kind of wish Lucha would have, and I know what's going to happen when they come back, but I'm not going to give spoilers, is a mid-card title, because they only have one, and then they have the trios.
Yeah.
So sometimes if they would just add another title, then it would give like the undercard a little bit something to go. But everyone's gunning for the Lucha Underground Championship, which is kind of cool because then you get people that get title matches that you wouldn't necessarily think they would. And then they do such a good job building them up that you actually think they might win. So,
sure.
That's pretty cool. And to the in-ring style, for some reason with Lucha, I don't have a problem with their high spots, because somehow throughout the match, their spots keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it tells a story, especially in Puma's matches.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
He is like what John Cena tries to be, but the fans crap on it when Cena does it. Puma gets his ass kicked like the entire match.
Oh yeah.
And
you think he's dead half the time.
Right. And then it'll be like 10-on-1, and then all of a sudden he does like one kick and knocks out 10 guys, and then he wins the match. It's crazy. But somehow you get so involved in the story that you don't even think about that. You're like, yeah, come on, Puma. And he wins, and you're like, oh, good, he won. You know, you suspend your disbelief somehow in Lucha. I don't know if it's a mask or what it is about Lucha, but somehow I could suspend my disbelief in there and get lost in their in-ring work, and I get lost in the story told in the ring that I have trouble doing in other promotions, such as ROH.
I can understand that. I can definitely understand that. I think that's a pretty good thing to think about. I know I can suspend it with NXT, and that's the virtue of the storytellers, and I definitely. It's only after the fact that I really notice it about Lucha Underground. I don't notice it when I'm watching it, and that's exactly to your point. Moving to that segue, I want to hit on the other two that we haven't talked about yet. And I know that you guys have done like 15 podcasts in the last 2 weeks about TNA, so I'm going to save that one. And I want to talk about ROH and the fact that ROH has this big blockbuster announcement that was made a couple months ago where Destination America, about 2-3 months after signing TNA, decides to bring another wrestling promotion on board, which I think is incredibly interesting. I don't think we've been able to talk about it, but what do you think of the decision to bring ROH on board, and what do you think of the ROH product as it has been on board, as it has been shown every Wednesday?
At first, I thought it was a work because they announced ROH debuting on Destination America the same night that Impact was moving to Wednesdays, and I was like, this is a work. This is something to do. They're working together. It's some kind of invasion. But it ended up being true. ROH actually signed with Destination America, and now ROH and Impact don't do anything. The funny thing was, Impact was like, welcome ROH, and ROH was like, F you, we're here alone. We don't care about you. And
That was probably TNA being like, "Hey, look, friends to play with." Then they're like, "Nope, we're good."
nope. Yeah.
Well,
And now
considering that TNA has ROH pretty bad in the past, and it's not the
yeah.
same people working at ROH, but it's the same people working at TNA.
So
hmm What do you think
sorry.
about what they're presenting? What the product is? Just the Wednesday product. What do you think that's what's going on
Um
there?
it's okay. I mean, it's the reason. I mean, it's hard for me to watch ROH. It's gotten a little bit better because I tried to watch ROH like a couple years ago when I found it on my local Fox station, but I
hmm
couldn't follow it. There's no story. It's just guys wrestling. And I'm like, why? There's little bits of stories, but it's not told well enough to where it was hard to follow. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then their advertisement is weird because they'll advertise stuff like that already happened.
Yeah,
So
I could see that.
it was really confusing. And now it's a little bit better because I know it comes on Destination America every Wednesday night, and it's a little bit better to follow. Jay
hmm
Lethal being the champion is exciting.
Oh yeah.
Um, that's pretty much why I watch right now is because of Lethal. And
Absolutely.
but now my problem goes to Lethal won the title at Best in the World, which happened a month ago. In 3 days, it will be a month that
hmm
Lethal won the title.
Yep.
Last week was the first week we saw him, and it's like because after the Best in the World pay-per-view, they showed 2 weeks of recaps
Yeah.
of their um, War of the Worlds or whatever it was called.
Yeah, their New Japan crossover.
And to me, that was really pointless because I'm like, I want to see Lethal as champion. Like,
hmm
where is Lethal? Where is the continuation of the story? There was no announcements of what like it was going to be replays, or I didn't catch it that they were going to show 2 weeks worth of War of the Worlds. I didn't understand what was going on.
I think that
And
that's a very interesting. Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
oh, it's fine. I was just gonna say, and that's my point. Like, it's hard to follow.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point to make, and it's something that I would actually agree with you. One thing that I would like to figure out about this and what's going on with ROH, and that's something that I don't seem to really enjoy about them, is that they came onto a new network, a brand new entity that is not Sinclair affiliated. It's Destination America, and they didn't do anything to introduce them to their new audience. They've just been basically airing a version of their show and expecting people to catch up, which I think is okay for the wrestling fans that are like, okay, I got a new place to find you guys. But for people, I would have loved to have seen, like, instead of the War of the Worlds recaps, which those were fun, and I love watching wrestle, so that's totally fine by me. But but I think that for the Destination America viewing audience, especially if they're going to catch TNA afterward, it's a smart idea to get to at least do something introducing your players, introducing the characters and the wrestlers that you have. I think that's where they kind of went wrong a little bit and needed to make sure what's going on with that.
Yeah, part of the problem of them signing with Destination America was that they agreed to air the replays of what they show during the weekend on the Sinclair channels.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
basically, you could just watch ROH on your local. Usually, it's Fox affiliate
mhm.
sometime throughout the weekend before it comes on Wednesday nights, and you already know what happens. On
Yeah.
top of the fact that everything's taped, you can just go find spoilers.
Exactly.
But
That's the big
they
thing.
they already taped all of their stuff and then decided to start airing on Destination America. So there's like no increase in production value. There's no new stories. There's no new introductions, like you said. So we're basically just being dropped right into the middle of like a season. Just think of starting a new TV show in the middle of the season, and you're just like, oh, here you go, just start watching, and you get
That's basically what's going on.
right.
And although I will say that I just listened to yesterday, Jim Ross had an ROH wrestler, Unbreakable Michael Elgin, on his show, and he said that I think it's starting to become a little bit, and he actually addressed a lot of things we're talking about, especially when it comes to their production value, and he said a lot of that is going to change soon.
I've read that too. When they signed, so then they got this big thing, you know, you sign with the station, you get money from it, but they had already taped, so the production value couldn't increase. So we're going to see increases and changes, but it just sucks that we had to wait.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see on that. But it does, it is coming, and that is a positive. I'll highlight some of the positives that I think about the product. What you said before, having Jay Lethal as a champion, I think is a great idea. He's a fantastic performer, both in the ring and on the mic. His verbal sparring during the contract signing with Jay Briscoe was absolutely fantastic, and it made me say, okay, I want to watch Best in the World now and see if he wins and he becomes a double champion.
I have to agree with that, because that was probably one of the best contract signings I've seen in years.
I know. That whole bit about I've made this the title made you, but I made this title was fantastic. I was like, I'm in. You got here, shut up and take my money. I'm ready. So, I just love that. I think some other things that they do well, and they've always done well, is the wrestling, again, has always been on point, but these days they're allowing character to come in. And they're becoming a reliant on character. You've watched a little bit of Ring of Honor. Do you think that back when it first started, when you had Nigel McGuinness or CM Punk or Samoa Joe, or when the man formerly known as Bryan Danielson running around, do you think somebody like Dalton Castle would have been a prominently featured part of that show?
I don't know. I don't think so. I still don't understand why he's featured as he is now. But I mean, he's a good wrestler. It's just his character is weird, and when I see him, I'm still like, really? But he's sort of entertaining.
His character is ridiculous, but that's just the point. That ridiculous character, or character in general, wouldn't have been on that program at all.
But here's the thing that pisses me off, and I mentioned this in our internet podcast.
Mm-hmm.
If that character goes to the WWE, it gets crapped on. The IWC, the same people that are cheering for him in ROH are now booing him, the same exact character, in the WWE.
Well, the IWC is what I like to call wrestling hipsters. They like that they have first-hand knowledge, and if something gets too popular, they tend to hate it. And
exactly.
That's exactly what's going on. But as far as ROH itself is concerned, I think that that's something they do well. I think their tag team wrestling has always been very well defined and on point, especially now that you've got the Addiction there full-time, and the Briscoe brothers are still tagging on and off. And you've got the proliferation of groups like the Kingdom and Red Dragon and the Young Bucks, whom I know that you don't like, but still the bodies definitely help. And I think that that's something that's they because it's a smaller roster and it's a 1-hour time slot, they try to focus on everything, or as much of everything as they can, which I think is pretty cool. I want to spend a little bit of time, and I know that you guys have done full podcasts dedicated to this, but I want to talk about Impact Wrestling as a show, not as TNA the company, not as Dixie Carter or whatever's going, or Jeff Jarrett or anything. I want to talk about them as a show, and the viewers listening live, or that will listen later, are probably going to be super shocked when I say this, but I'm actually going to praise TNA for something. I know. It's crazy. I don't know if you can believe it, but I'm actually going to say that TNA did something well.
And what is that?
That is exactly kind of what we talked about. That ROH didn't do well. We mentioned that Ring of Honor had just kind of dropped in the middle of the story. The first couple of impacts of the new year, they did a great job of reintroducing Impact to their audience, reintroducing their performers, the storylines, everything that was going on. They, I think, did a great job introducing and making sure that everything was known and that people could access it well, being like, okay, this is Robbie E. This is what you should know about him. This is Kurt Angle. This is what you should know about him. This is Brooke. Here's what you should know about her. I think that part, I applaud them on that.
When they came on Destination America, I didn't watch for a couple weeks because I was still had a bad taste in my mouth from last summer. But then Lethal Lockdown returned, and I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And I watched like 3 or 4 weeks in a row, like within a weekend, and it was pretty good.
Yeah.
The show was entertaining. It's still sort of entertaining, but my problem with it, like in about February to March, was it moves way too fast. Lashley was the champion, I believe, going in, if I remember correctly, or was it Bobby Roode? I don't remember, but there was some kind of feud continuing from the world title from when they took their break and switched from Spike. Then the title changed, I believe, and then you had Kurt Angle wrestle Lashley on a big episode, and then the title changed there. Then you had the rematch like 2 weeks later, and then you had another world title match. And then Eric Young had like 5 world title matches in a row, like week after week somehow. And it's just like there was no way to build the story. There was no way to get excited for anything. I just like, yeah, Impact's on, cool, but I wasn't waiting all week like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens. I can't wait to see who wins this match. There was nothing exciting about it. The show was entertaining, but there was no emotional investment.
I can understand that. I can see where that is and kind of what's going on with that. I'm going to, again, highlight a few things that I think TNA is doing well. The product is becoming more entertaining. I think the Knockouts division is getting back there, and I think the players involved have been very helpful with that. I really, really like Ethan Carter III as the champion. And as a top contender, I like what the work that he's put into this character. I think that has been fantastic, and I like that they've been getting a lot more. They've been using their working relationship with Brooklyn and doing the that British boot camp show and getting people involved with that, like Rockstar Spud and Mandrews and Grada, and using their UK deal to kind of help them out. And I think that a lot has been that the talent has again been there. Where I find a little bit of a problem, and this is why I bemoan sometimes that Ethan Carter III is the champion, because he's such a good performer, yet the product in the past couple of weeks has not been kind of what I want to see. And it's based off of, and I know that you guys have talked about this, really crappy business decisions. You guys have detailed some of these, and I don't want to rehash what has already been said on this very show, but I will give in a nutshell that basically the decision to hold off on title changes until to give them away for free on television when you're building everything to one of your biggest pay-per-views of the year, that's a WCW move right there.
Thank you. I was gonna bring that up. That's crazy. Because one of the reasons that WCW folded was because Bischoff was more worried about ratings than he was about pay-per-view buys. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, there's so much information out there about how and why WCW folded, not to mention the cast of people that you have that actually worked for WCW. For you to be making the same mistakes is crazy.
It was nuts, and thankfully, I'm pretty sure at this point all of those people have stepped away from TNA, whether by force or by choice. But still, some of these decisions have not been doing well. There were rampant rumors that they were getting canceled, and they did nothing to address those rumors. They just yelled at people who thought about it like that. There have been, what was I going to say? There was a group they're trying to help Jeff Jarrett out with Global Force Wrestling, I guess, his new company. But I don't understand why they would have a working relationship with a competitor like that when Jeff basically, I hated that promo, first of all, that he gave on in the middle of the ring where he's talking about getting fired from his own company and wanting to come back and finish it on his own terms, blah, 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 blah. I get it. It makes sense. I did not need to see it because TNA up to this point has been all about moving with what they have. There really is only like one major veteran on the show anymore, and it's Kurt Angle. Yes, you can say MVP and Lashley were all part of the, but they were still relatively young and relatively kind of in that mid-30s pack. Kurt Angle's the only one who's that old, but then to have somebody like Jeff Jarrett come back, and to have Karen come back, which I'm pretty sure no wrestling fan wanted to see Karen Jarrett come back and fake cry into a microphone about how her husband was round. Didn't need to see it, didn't want to see it. It took away from what they have been doing, I think. And
that promo was horrible. It was boring. It was a advertisement for Global Force Wrestling because I don't understand how you can end a sentence or within every sentence that you speak have your company name in it. It was insane, and I don't know. And they're still not doing anything about it, and that's the problem. Is they did this big angle on their live show. They did this thing on this pay-per-view, and we're 4 weeks out, maybe something like that from their pay-per-view, and nothing has come of it. You've had like a 2-part sit-down interview that accomplished nothing. It's really what the point. We know that they're leaving or appear to be leaving Destination America. That's been announced or speculated since June. And now I read a report today that TNA is actively looking for another TV deal.
Oh, it was. Okay.
So they have quietly told certain people that they will be looking for a new TV deal when they come September, and that some about their international TV deals will keep them afloat until they could find a new domestic one.
All right. Well, there you go. But that, I think, has been driving a lot of their television decisions, like bringing back people who were once a part of the company. As much as I love Bully Ray, I would honestly rather see him and Devon feuding with Luke Harper and Eric Rowan once Eric Rowan gets healthy. I'd rather see that than have him back on TNA. And the fact that so many people that are currently on my screen this week, people like Austin Aries, James Storm, and even somebody like what's his face,
Magnus.
Or Magnus. Yeah, that they're supposed to be gone, but they're still here. I think it's interesting how that stuff hasn't caught up yet, but we'll probably see how that pans out soon enough. People are tending to abandon the ship. There's all sorts of legal trouble with Lucha Underground now because Hernandez came back. It's one of these things where they're just they're in scramble mode again, and they don't have to be in scramble mode because go ahead.
I watch wrestling or Impact, and I feel like, what's the point? Like, why are they doing this? Why is this happening? What is going on here?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter in my eyes. I like Bully Ray as the authority figure because it's great to see a face authority figure, because for some reason everybody loves to do the freaking heel authority figures. And Bully Ray being a tough guy, like take no crap, was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I was thinking when he was introduced was how long before he turns heel.
Mm. Though I will say to that with Bully Ray, out of the now that Bully Ray has been named the authority figure, out of the 4 shows that are currently on right now, you could really call only one of the authority figures on the shows a heel, and that would be Dario Cueto from Lucha. Because Bully Ray is being a take no crap face. Nigel McGuinness is a matchmaker. He's ostensibly a face. And Regal is beloved by everybody as the general manager of NXT, so he's definitely a face. So it's interesting you say that.
But the thing with Regal and McGuinness is they're not featured. They're not featured that much. So they don't have a big role.
Episode will get a Regal spot, which there was one episode where he was everywhere, which was fantastic.
It's nice when it comes every so often, but he's not, like, they're not the authority on Raw. They're not Dario Cueto on Lucha. So my thing is, though, as wrestling as a whole, they love to do the heel authority figures. I mean, we have it going on Raw. Dixie was turned heel. MVP came in and face. He turned heel like 2 weeks later.
I hated
it's just like they love to do it, and so I just like, when is he going to turn heel? Another thing I want to talk about Impact from last night, because I was just shaking my head throughout this show. First, you have a horrible X Division match between Rockstar Spud, DJZ, and 2 other guys, and one of them happens to be the champion. And the champion botches the finish so bad that I'm like, really? Like, that's going to put them away?
I see what it was.
It would look like it was supposed to be a Phoenix splash of some sort, but he ended up splashing his knees. And not like the upper part of the knees, so it kind of looks like he hit his body, but the lower part of Grado's legs and knees, and he put him away with that. It's like, you can't do that as a champion. I understand botches happen, and I'm not as harsh as most people in the IWC, but you're the champion for the reason. You're supposed to carry the X Division and set the standard, and for you to just do something so horrendous, and it's like you could get your balance on the top rope. Like, make sure he's there. Make sure he's set up. Put him in the position he needs to be in the ring. Like, that's just a horrible spot.
It's very, very interesting to see. Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm hoping that Grado becomes champion sooner rather than later, because I really like his work. To that match, DJZ does not work as a babyface because that brr noise he makes is way too damn annoying. And outside of that match, there were some things I liked about what happened. I don't know why Eli Drake turned heel on Drew Galloway. He had no reason to. That's a Russo swerve right there.
But what I saw coming from last week when he was like, "Oh, you're going to get everything that you deserve."
Oh, gee.
And then this week, he just randomly appears while Galloway is talking backstage about his match. Like, yeah, bud, good job. Like, the only time someone congratulates someone in wrestling is usually when they're going to turn on him.
Okay, so that makes more sense. Absolutely. But before we kind of get into the wrap-up mode, someone please explain to me what the dollhouse is.
The dollhouse is great.
I like the dollhouse.
That's what it is. That's what it is. It's great. It's the best thing, character, storyline-wise, in women's wrestling today.
Well, fantastic. I think that they're doing a good job. I just can't. Because I sort of came in. I missed above the beginning too. I think when the dollhouse first formed up, but I don't understand. Are they supposed to be like little girls, or are they supposed to be just big teases, or they try to bring sexy back?
Teasers.
I don't understand.
They're just like big teasers that think that they're like hotter than everyone. They're almost like a playful, beautiful people type thing.
Okay, and I do like what Taryn Carella's been doing with it, and the fact that she's kind of taken on this jealous, clingy, insane role. It's not the insanity that pervades the WWE where every woman's just like, I'm going to go crazy. She kind of hints at it, and then she'll snap right back into playful. She kind of teeters that line pretty well, and I like that.
It's great. I mean, yeah, Charlotte, Sasha, Becky, Paige, the list goes on at the work rate of the divas in the WWE.
Mm-hmm.
But what's their character? What's the storyline? What do they come out and be different? Because they look different, because they dress different, because Charlotte has a legend for a dad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no, or if they do have a character, there's no story. With the Dollhouse, there's a freaking story. It's great. It's entertaining. Which brings me to the point of, what the hell were they thinking when they took the title off of Taryn Terrell last night?
That wasn't the right move.
That was the worst decision.
Here's what I think. And I'm not into armchair booking, but it should have been that Gail Kim reveal should have happened. If I were going to book the match, it would have been Taryn wins, the Dollhouse continues to beat the crap out of Brooke. Lights go down. Gail Kim appears with the same thing that she did. Marty's already on the floor. She knocks out Jade with those crazy, awesome, like, cartwheelie moves. Then stares at Taryn Terrell. Lights go down. She leaves, setting up for the big match, the big revenge match between Taryn and Gail Kim. Her revenge should be taking the title back to her, not having Taryn lose the title at all.
Right. That made no sense, and it just took everything out of the storyline, because now she's just there for revenge. Now they're just going to beat each other up, and it's like, the title meant so much more, because the Knockouts title really does mean something, and Taryn Terrell holding it for so long actually did something for it.
I think you're right.
And it's like, now you're just throwing it away. Not to mention, for the second championship match in a row, back-to-back matches on the same show, the finish was botched.
Yeah, whatever that X Factor thing that she did, I think they call it the Butterface Maker, which that's a weird name for something.
Especially for Brooke.
Yeah, especially for Brooke. But that was horribly mistimed.
Yeah, I don't know whose it was. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Brooke went early, or Taryn just sandbagged her. But
yeah, I gotcha.
That was just.
So
I was just like, really, 2 matches in a row. I was like, and here's the problem.
Yeah, this is turning into Bash TNA again. So in order to kind of keep us going, we've tried to spend equal time on all 4, kind of as a way to finish. I'm going to ask a question that you asked me earlier, because I like kind of your answer to it. But I don't know if there are talks of this ever happening, but do you see the possibility of any one of these 4 programs going live? And if so, does that change anything?
Lucha is out of the question because they are a TV show.
Yeah. That's how they're booked. Like we said before, it's a TV show based around wrestling.
And that's their thing, and I don't want to change it because it's exciting, and they're going to take a couple months off, which is just going to build anticipation for their return.
Oh, it's going to be so good. I can't wait. Cannot wait.
Impact going live would help them because it brings back a surprise factor that they're missing.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying these big angles, but it doesn't work because we already know they're happening. They're making horrible decisions. Just things are falling apart. They've filmed so much TV, and then they got in a contract issue and legal issues with Hernandez, and they have to cut all that programming for the next couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah, that's a problem.
So there's a problem. The invasion angle would work better if it was live.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be I have my skeptics about it. I don't want to crap on it already, but it's hard to have a big angle that's taped. There's no surprise factor. There's no wow factor.
Mm-hmm. Is there going to be an invasion? Who's invading? Again.
Right, and we're going to find out. They tape next week, so you have to be careful so that you try not to see any spoilers, because the internet is freaking retarded and loves to post spoilers. Impact would benefit. I don't see NXT going live, and it doesn't really matter.
No, their formula is working really well. So
it doesn't matter for them. They're a developmental brand. It's on the network, so it's like, how many people are really going to watch live anyways? You could on demand it.
There are people who do catch it live, try to avoid the spoilers.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm home doing nothing, I'll catch it live. But I mean, really, it's not that big of a deal. And then ROH, we don't know what they are live, so I don't know if it could hurt them or help them. Honestly, they don't have any big angles or stories, so does it really matter if they go live or not? It could maybe help production value. If they change their way of writing, it could help them. But the biggest benefit to going live would be from TNA.
Yeah. I can understand that. To finish off, I will say this. I'm going to dispute your claim that NXT is a developmental brand, because while they are trying out new things, and while they are definitely keeping that spirit alive of what it started out as, I would wager to say that it's developed into its own thing. It's still a third brand. It's got its own following. It's not what FCW or OVW used to be. It's reaching a much broader audience. The T-shirts actually look like they came from WWE. Their characters are there, and pretty much everyone is devoted to that group or that thing.
The thing about it, it's not just a developmental brand for the wrestlers, though. I believe it's a developmental for the whole product, as in cameraman, special effects guys, lighting. All of them are working their way up to the main roster too. But also, I have to say that it has to be developmental for characters and what's going to work for a WWE audience. Storylines, we might start seeing more storylines tried out in NXT, and then see those same storylines tried out on Raw.
Maybe.
I wouldn't be surprised to see it, like, maybe the same guys even take that story up to NXT or up to Raw from NXT in a couple years, you know, like Punk did with what did he do? He did the same thing in ROH, and he eventually took it up to WWE.
The summer of
I think
Punk,
it was Straight Edge Society.
The leaving as champion. It was the whole leaving as champion thing.
Right. So it just, I mean, we're going to see stuff. And NXT is a developmental brand for the product, not just the wrestlers, and that's what makes it different.
I can understand that. Well, I think we have talked long enough. We're at about an hour, if not more or less, on this. I think, as a way to close down, Wrestle Wednesday is a great idea. Wrestle Wednesday is a great thing. It offers it basically what we can boil it down is there's something for everybody. If you like your pure wrestling, you watch ROH. If you like your storytelling, if you like more of a TV-like atmosphere, you watch Lucha Underground. If you like good character development, if you like a WWE-like product, but with a little bit more seasoning to it, you watch NXT. If you're bored, you watch TNA. and that's just kind of the way it is. And I take a drink. We did it again. But yeah, it definitely has something for everybody, and I think that's why it is a good thing. Final remarks, Adam, on this topic.
As a wrestling fan, I look forward to Wednesday nights.
Oh yeah.
I try to watch everything on Wednesday, but if not, I just catch it by Thursday at the latest. It's really a great time to be a wrestling fan.
I agree.
Not only because of all the things that are happening, but because you have Perfect Madness Wrestling. And if you're not checking us out, then you're using the internet wrong.
You are interneting in a wrong way. You need to internet better, internet. And in order for them to internet better, I'm going to let Adam go ahead and drop on the social media so they have ways to improve their ways of interneting.
To better your internet, follow us on Twitter at PMW Podcast. You can like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Perfect Madness Wrestling. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You know what you're watching on right now. If you're watching on our website, then click the YouTube link and hit the subscribe button. All support is appreciated. And any comments anywhere, website, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, I try to respond to. One of us says me or Jesus, but we acknowledge everybody that says anything, that supports us, that likes us, and all that. So start using your internet correctly. Tell your friends to start using the internet correctly, and find Perfect Madness Wrestling somewhere.
Absolutely. There are plenty of ways to do it. This podcast is going to become more of a thing. I think we said it a couple episodes ago when we made our return. But we're happy to be back. I'm happy to be back on the show. I'm going to try to make this more of a constant thing, at least once every other week, or at least once a week. We'll see. But tune in next time when we come back, when Adam and I make Jesus pay for missing this episode by forcing him into an arm wrestling match with both King Kong Bundy and Mark Henry at the same time. We'll see how that goes. Until next time, this has been Perfect Madness Wrestling, and you haven't been. Signing off. Enjoy.